Finally.
Orlox. Go to the ship, Richter. I'll catch you up.
You've made a big mistake. My mom was gonna slice you in two.
For children, especially when they look up to their parents are really good at things. Parents are almost like gods to children. Our imprinting in childhood on our parental figures helps start that base of stability, our feelings of security. And you can tell that Richter 100% believes in what he's saying about his mom. He really looks up to her. And those first times when we first realize that our parents are fallible, they're not perfect, can be really devastating for children, especially so in the case of Richter.
In 250 years. Do you know?
Love his voice.
Do you know how many vampire hunters have promised to slice me in two?
At least one.
Now, Richter, go to the ship. Come on, Mom.
For him, there's not even a possibility that she could fail. He just wants to watch the show. This is probably something that he's had very few chances, maybe none, to get to see. And so you can understand why he would really want to see his mom in action. You hear about all of these legends, but you don't really know what your parents are like when they're at work or doing their favorite hobby, especially if they're exceptionally good at that. And biologically, it was really important for us to watch and see, to be able to mimic what other people do, especially in times of trouble. That's when our brain is on record. That's when that trauma, that anxiety response are areas for mimicry, for learning of behavior, which are really heightened when we're younger, are learning and recording what to do in times of danger or in stress. So unfortunately for parents, if your reaction is not the reaction you want your child to have in stress, yelling or screaming or panicking, then you want to really be careful what you do in those times, because that's when it mattered. That's when we had to learn to keep us out of danger. The world was a really dangerous place. And so during those times, we had to remember really quickly, maybe only with one chance to see it before, so that we wouldn't get wiped out or make a mistake the first time that something happens to us. We are pretty much useless when we are first born. So when we hit those developmental levels at the age of 2, we have more synaptic connections than we will ever have for the rest of our life. And that's when we start to really develop, learn, and grow. And that's one of the biggest growth cycles for us, is from the age of 2 to about the age of 7 to 9 years old. That's when our brain is actually pruning synaptic connections, when we're honing in on what are the skills that we should keep and learn. And we do that mostly through mimicry, also through experiential, and the things that we feel emotionally. Also, we develop and imprint what to be able to do, think, and feel in various scenarios. It's actually losing of connections that allows us to hone in and speed up certain connections for certain areas of our growth. And so that's why it's really important for us as parents, as parental figures, to be able to really try to enrich our children's lives during these very important growth periods. A lot of times when we're young, all the way up to our teenage years, we feel infallible, and the people that we care about are also infallible. We feel almost invulnerable, like nothing can hurt us. To realize that that can happen, that horrible things could happen to us, can be really devastating, exceptionally traumatic on us, and change who we are as people, change the way that we see the world. Our entire scheme of what we trust, what we do, how we feel, can be altered because of traumatic events in early adulthood. I find this part so heartbreaking because for Richter, he just wanted to help out his mom in a fight. Like, he saw that she might not be as prepared as he had hoped for. He wants to be able to be a part of it, and he's trying to help out. Unfortunately, especially when we're fighting something and it's difficult for us, we need to have full concentration, especially when you've mastered a sport. When you've mastered something, you'll do better when you don't have to think, when you allow your instincts to just go about them. But now, her thought process, it's split. She has to make sure that she protects him, along with fighting a foe that is to or greater than her level. Like, I can just feel that guilt that he has to go through, that if he had gone to the ship or he had stayed hidden, would have the end result been different? And those are the kind of things that really play upon our mind. You can't go back in time. We do the best that we can. His intentions were not to harm. They were not ill. They were a child's thought. But it's a really hard thing to kind of let go of those feelings of survivor's guilt also. Often they can stay with us for many years or even a lifetime if we don't work through them. And because of his prefrontal cortex, he doesn't understand consequences to actions. And I don't even think that at this stage he even realizes that she could be fallible, that she could make a mistake, that this could end up in danger. He was just joyous and excited, and then he was worried, and his thought is to protect those that he loves because of not really having the foresight, which we don't have. It's the last part of our brain. Consequences to actions are the last part of our brain that develops. And so because of that, he makes this error, this calculated error out of love and protection, but one that probably plays upon him very heavily. And you can tell that for Julia, this is the first time that she shows real fear. She wasn't scared for herself, she wasn't scared for the battle, she wasn't scared for the end result, but that mother's instinct to protect her child and the risk to him, now she is frightened. And her knocking him out of the way is what caused her to lose her whip and get herself pinned. It's just so painful to have good intentions go awry, and then how do we deal with them?
I'm sorry, Richter.
Sorry of, I'm sorry that this didn't end this way. I'm sorry that you have to see this. I'm sorry that you're now in danger. I'm sorry that I couldn't protect you. I'm sorry that all of this happened. She probably feels bad that she even brought him to this area. It's just so hard, those moments of regret that she has in that look at him. What Richter's going through is shock. Your brain, it goes through, it's so much emotional or traumatic damage that it'll actually shut itself off, that you can't even think or feel. It blocks everything out, and it's a way to protect yourself from absorbing any more traumatic damage. For some people, they may even faint. And processing power is sped up in certain areas, but completely slowed down in others. Again, in order to keep us safe, because absorbing all kinds of trauma, it's really, really hard for us. And so sometimes our brain short circuits in order to give us, I don't want to say a break, but a pause, so that we can survive long-term, not really short-term, because being in complete shock is not always what you need. But everyone reacts to trauma in different ways. There is that fight, that flight, that freeze, that faint or fawn. And so in some cases, it is just that freeze response where nothing is happening. You can tell that nothing is going in.
Little boy Belmont. I know that feeling. Your mama took someone from me I loved, just as much as you loved her.
When we go through traumatic events, some things in that event sometimes get imprinted in our mind. It could be a sight, a smell, a feel, things that happened, words that were said. They become recorded. It's beneficial for us in order to remember that, to try to Solve that problem so that we don't get ourselves stuck in that situation again, which you can tell biologically that would be a great idea. But it also is traumatic that we can sometimes then continue to see flashbacks, to hear things, to think things, to have nightmares that bring us back this solution. For our brain, it's trying to solve the problem. But for us, we're reliving this trauma over and over again. And for some of them, they're not traumas that there is a solution for that we will ever experience again. But for our brain, it has one way of trying to solve problems. It has one way to kind of deal with it, to try to cope with it. The thing is that if you only relive the trauma over and over again, you can stay there and you can get stuck in that time and place. And so that's why it's really important to work through trauma, again, the way that you see fit. Therapeutically would be one way, but other people have different ways of going through trauma. It could be meditation, it could be exercise, it could be journaling. You want to find your own path to be able to have the thoughts of those events to not negatively impact you, because if you don't, they'll just come up at any point in time, and they can be really damaging to present day events and present day choices. In some cases, they can completely stop you in your tracks or doing things that you might want to or need to do, such as dating, becoming close to people, taking risks because you fear that bad things could happen.
I am Richter Belmont, last descendant of the Belmont clan, and I kill vampires! Who's next?
I love seeing how much he believes in himself, how much he's grown. Even though he no longer has his magic, he has honed his skills and become really good at them. A lot of times when we've gone through something, we've been bullied or traumatized or gone through hurt, we make sure that nothing ever is going to hurt us again in that way. For Richter, he has honed his skills of being able to fight and be exceptionally adept at that. Because that hurt and pain from when he was a little boy is still somewhere in there, hasn't yet been addressed. And for lots of us, we carry our hurts and pain with us for the rest of our life, unless, of course, you address it. But you'll still hear it, and you don't want to just shove it away. You want to be able to listen to it and hear what it needs and wants from you, not from other people.
Little boy Belmont, all grown up.
Perfect sense that this would cause him a full-blown panic attack. It's this very distinctive voice. It brings him back to being that little boy again, that fear, that terror. And he uses the same line that he heard exactly said in the same way. That's common for us and beneficial, right? If you heard the snake rattle, felt the same kind of air or the same environment, everything about a situation that caused us damage can restart that feeling of trauma in us, which would have been beneficial so that we get prepared for danger beforehand, because most dangers used to wipe us out. So it makes sense that we will go into full adrenaline response. Unfortunately, though, sometimes it's not the response we want. And for Richter, it is to flee. And here he is, this amazing, epic, legendary fighter who can fight things and feel no fear. But in these moments when we go through our panic or anxiety, we become children again. The part of our brain that's about a 3-year-old takes over and it chooses for us. Is this weakness though? I hate when people say that. No, it's not bloody weakness. This is our body naturally going through an adrenaline response. And yes, we can train ourselves to get better at dealing with adrenaline responses, but they are normal, they are natural, and they happen to everybody. No, it is not a weakness to have this happen. Should you deal with it? Yes, 100% you should deal with it because it is unpleasant and sometimes it's going to have you do things that you don't want to do. But this thought of this is strength or weakness, not having fear is not a strength. That's not being that smart to understand your dangers. You have to have an adrenaline response. If not, it's not normal or not healthy, but you don't want it to take over for you either. It's an understandable response, especially going through the kind of trauma that he had. He lost his mother and watched her die in front of him, and all of the feelings of survivor's guilt. What could have he done? Replaying it over and over in his mind. You can understand how this vampire that killed his mom is the greatest monster that he could ever encounter, because in the end, it's you defeating the monsters that are inside of you, not really the monsters that are outside. And he's created Orlox to be undefeatable.
We have to go. We have to get out of here. We have to go!
And so unlike Richter, he doesn't even wait for everyone else to leave. His body decides for him. When we replay times of panic, we rarely reacted the way that we hope or wish to. It shuts off our cognitive part of our brain, the thinking part of our brain, and we just do something. Again, it was smart for his own survival, but it is the antithesis of who he is. He is there to protect Maria and Annette, but in this case, he leaves everyone behind. He has to get out. To have that thing that we've tried so hard to run from, to have never come back to see us, to be face to face with it, especially when you didn't expect it, it's reliving that trauma from you and it being forced upon you, which actually makes anxiety and traumas worse. A lot of people try to help someone with a trauma by throwing a rubber snake at someone that's scared of snakes. That's only going to make the trauma worse. It's not going to be healing it. You might think that it's funny, but it'll actually increase their anxiety reaction to dealing with that. For Richter, it's also that reflection of who is he and what did he do? He couldn't save his mom, and he wasn't able to save Annette and Maria, and he doesn't even know if they're okay. And it's all in his mind because of him, because he couldn't hold it together. Our own self-reflection on who we are and why we've reacted the way that we have, it can greatly influence, one, our own feelings of self-esteem and self-worth, but also our actual reactions of how are we going to handle situations and why. I think that they did a really beautiful job of truly showing the pain that he feels and having it be this childlike, unreserved wailing that he feels. I think that that is a really honest reflection of what happens to people when they've had to face their traumas and haven't reacted the way that they wished that they could. I don't think that it was that he went back in time and he was a child again, but his child part self came out, and then the reflection that he has on himself and his growth. In the end, we're kind of like just big kids trying to go through the world doing the best that we can. And I don't think that he really believed that he could be beaten either, just like he believed in his mom. So I think that he's going through it twofold.
You said you were a powerful magician. Emphasis on the word.
I had a wife, your grandmother, and a friend. His name was Maxim. A vampire killed them both.
And for Richter, he wants to know because the magic left him also. He hasn't been able to produce magic since the day that his mother died. We can surmise different reasons, but often what happens during times of trauma, that anything that deals with that trauma we may not feel that safe or comfortable with. For him, his magic failed him. He wasn't able to save his mother with it, and possibly he might have even blamed it. Especially for the Belmonts, magic for them was in their belief system, in being able to fully believe in themselves, to have a singular focus. And I think that it left Just and it left Richter both in times of when they failed the people that they love and they lost someone. I think that it's very telling that both of them weren't able to perform magic during those moments after.
You going to beg for his life? The little girl is almost your sister. The speaker woman, who has been like a mother to you.
And what this vampire doesn't really know, that he's actually inciting Richter. I don't believe that he would have fought this hard, that he would have burned with this amount of fury, had it been just for him and his grandfather, because he doesn't really care about his grandfather that much, and he doesn't really care about losing his own life. Him inciting those that he loves, that he has sworn to protect, that he already feels like he has abandoned and put them at risk, I think that that's what really causes that fire, that fury inside of him.
She'll turn them. What do you think of that?
And I love that we can really feel that fury that he feels inside of him, those flashes of the people that he loves, that it is up to him to be able to do something, and that kind of burns out from him without even his control. people that deal with violent situations, difficult situations, that's what they talk about. This is when their adrenaline works for them, where nothing else matters. They become singular in their focus. Time almost slows down, where they just do what they have to do. And for Richter, it comes out with this item crash kind of like full on fury, but it's just really cool to be able to feel this played out, that in this case, he was able to fully believe in himself and to be able to do something about it. I don't think that it is even though he had this trauma, I think that it is because he's had this trauma. He knows what it's like to lose someone. He's replayed it in his head 1,000 times, and he is going to do everything he can. Every single cell of his being is going to ensure that this doesn't happen again. And that's what unleashes the power of his magic again, that he knows he has to. And so everything inside of him is going to rage out. When we deal with a very difficult situation and we have that rush of adrenaline, that's when, if we've mastered something, if it is something within us, we'll actually be better without thought. And that's when that adrenaline can be exceptionally effective, where we want to have it, to be able to utilize it to its full power, where people can lift up cars, where we become stronger, faster, single-minded, focused on one thing to be able to get the job done. Love the music. And I love those scenes. Those are my favorite scenes, when someone really believes in themselves and it doesn't even matter. Like, they're running at him and he's just standing there. He's not scared at all. And like, he doesn't need the whip. The cool part is that just talked about how he didn't need the whip. He was so powerful with his magic. He was one of the most powerful sorcerers of the Belmont clan. And he didn't even need his whip to be able to lay waste to vampires. And here it is, Richter being able to fully embody that. And it's just a really cool moment to be able to have just look on, to be able to see it play out right before him.
There's something you forgot about Belmont. I'd forgotten it too. I was going to say something witty and cutting and brutal before I finished you off. But f*** it.
How did that happen?
A bunch of vampires tracked me, hunted me down. I remembered the things that make me who I am. The hopes, the pain, and the shit.
And that's what happens to us, is that when we need those moments to really hold on to it, we go back to those places. We relive the things of who are we, what have we done, what have we accomplished, and that allows us to move forward or get stuck in place. That's why it's so important to remember your accomplishments. Remember who it is that you are, the character traits that make you what it is. And that's why if you're really negative and hard on yourself, you're actually defeating yourself before you've ever entered the fight.
I really made a choice about the kind of person I want to be. A Belmont. I won't let myself be afraid ever again.
But we are afraid. It's not always bad.
Fear is not a bad thing. That shouldn't be the point. The point shouldn't be to not be afraid. The point should be to be afraid, but still be able to move forward, to go on in spite of your fear.
I'm ready for you now.
And that's the cool part, is when we are able to face our fears and not allow it to stop us, maybe even to have this fear drive us forward, to be able to become counterphobic, to see something that used to stop us and be able to move past it. That's that growth that's so exciting. It's why I love doing therapy, because that's what it's about. It's about looking at the things that usually stop us and learning different tools and techniques to be able to move past that. And so that's what I really love about this scene between Richter and Orlox.
Finally.
Orlox.
My mom was gonna slice you in two.
Do you know how many vampire hunters have promised to slice me in two?
Orlox is one of the coolest characters in the Nocturne series. One of the reasons for that is that he's just cool as a cucumber. Here he is with someone that you would assume that he should be passionately angry at, but he isn't. He walks slowly and concisely towards them. He lightly chuckles. You can't even tell that he's angry or upset. It's not even like this is personal. It's more like this is a debt that has to be paid, not for an emotional response. And staying cool and calm, being able to be analytical through really strong emotional reactions takes a lot of higher upper brain mediation, which is kind of suppressing the emotional limbic response, the middle part of your brain that deals with emotions and memories. But the cognitive part, which deals with analytics and logistics, is the one that you can tell takes over. And he's analytical through everything. It's really, really cool. Even after this huge heated battle, something that you would think he would feel some sort of relief, there's been a vendetta that's been paid, he still just slowly and calmly looks over at Richter. It's so much easier to dislike someone that's angry and vicious and mean and cruel. But for Orlox, he's cold and calculated and analytical and doing things because he believes what is right or what he feels like he has to do. And people that are more meticulous, that are thought out, are those that use that analytical part of their brain more often than the emotional part. And you can tell that he has practiced himself to be able to control his emotions very well. And odds are because that is what has helped him survive.
Ah, little boy Belmont. I know that feeling.
He doesn't need to tower over Richter, and I think that that's really important. A lot of people that enjoy power, that hunger for that, like to show their strength, make other people feel small. Orlox goes down, so he's almost eye to eye with Richter. He wants him to understand, but he brings him to his level. And I think that that's something that I wouldn't expect from him, especially in this opening scene when we see him as this horrible vampire that just killed his mother.
That pain, that hate, that burning, unendurable need for retribution. Your mama took someone from me I loved, just as much as you loved her.
His reasoning for killing her is also really understandable. For a lot of people that we see as the hero in a story, they've had to avenge the death of someone that they loved, of someone that they cared about that was taken from them. We empathize with people whose motivation would be one that we might feel exactly the same about, or at least understand. And it's much more difficult to just look at him as a bad guy and throw judgment his way.
Oh, I could kill you too, and I will. One day. But not tonight.
And that's the really interesting thing, is that if he was just this cold-blooded killer vampire, why wouldn't he just get rid of Richter? Tasty little tiny snack, stop someone else from claiming retribution upon him. But he understands it. He actually says, one day you're gonna want revenge as well, and he accepts that, and he is going to allow him to grow to adulthood. I believe that he feels that that's the natural order of things, that Richter deserves to be able to have his retribution as well, but he doesn't feel that it would be a fair fight or even just. He doesn't kill little people just because he can. And that also adds another layer to why Orlox is such a very cool character. And it's so dispassionate, the way that he just walks over her. He doesn't step on her, which he could. He doesn't make her look horrible. He doesn't take her with her. He doesn't even feed on her. Her death was just a payment that had to be paid. When we want revenge, often it's this passionate, I want to make someone pay, I want them to suffer. The only thing though is that at the end, after you get your revenge, the thing that you lost is not returned to you. If you were even insulted or slighted, that still has happened. And so it's one of these internal things that often when people have received the revenge that they hoped that they would get, they don't actually feel that relief that they would hope that they felt. I think that for Orlox, he said that it was passionate, it was visceral, that he felt all of these things, but it seems like he has practiced to have exceptionally good emotional control, which you can actually do. You can be able to rein in your emotions. Remember that emotions, just like any other skill, can be trained. You can practice yourself to be calm under pressure, to be able to feel anger but not act on it. The way that you express the way that you feel is often the way that we were shown from parents. But it seems that from Orlox, he's trained himself to be able to be calm no matter what the circumstance. For him, that probably is what has led to his ability to survive. You see that flash that Orlox does when he watches Mizrak fighting, practicing his swordsmanship? His eyes actually flash wider, which does actually happen when we see something that we want or we see something that we like. Usually, though, our pupils, when we like something, will dilate. They'll become larger. That's why a lot of people that play poker or that deal in fine gems will wear sunglasses so that you can't tell their pupils dilate when they see something that they really like. That flash also definitely happens, and you can see that from Orlox. He sees something in Mizrak just from those few movements. Probably it's how focused and intense he is. Just in case you're worried, I'm going to go through a whole video just on Orlox and Mizrak's relationship all on its own right after this one. So we're not going to be dealing with it right now because I think their relationship deserves a video of their own.
This one, he was just an opportunist, following the Messiah because she's powerful. There are those who love her, so I'm told.
He knew right away, just from looking at him, that he was following Elizabeth just because of her power, not because he believed. There are people that are able to take a look at someone and be able to know their intentions and be able just to read their micro expressions even after seeing them just for a few seconds. So people can actually do this. And I think that for Orlox, this isn't even one of his vampiric powers. I would assume that this is something that he's had since very young. He knows that there are people that love her truly as well. And so he's letting her know that I know a lot about you.
I'm Orlox. She's expecting me.
Of course. The Aztec.
Just sailed in, loving France.
And then without another word, he just walks off. Just kind of cool. That ability in social engineering is underplayed in society, to be able to understand what other people's intentions are, what they want from certain situations, what they don't want, what are their motivations, and what are their weaknesses. For anyone, especially people, though, that are dealing with people in power or trying to work their way up in business or their careers, this knowledge is probably one of the most powerful skills you can have, because if you understand what someone's weaknesses are and you understand what they want, you can use that to your own advantage. So it definitely is his own way of playing this political game as a game of chess.
Striking terror in the hearts of children, I see.
So it's really interesting who he chose to eat. He could have chose the young beggar, the person that was down and out, the person that would be forgotten, that no one cares about. But instead, who does he prefer?
I prefer my blood blue.
The elite. He's now saved Richter Belmont, even though he knows that he's going to want to enact revenge against him, and the young beggar boy. And when you have choices, the choices that you make tell a lot about your personality. So he definitely has something against the elites versus those that are in the lower classes. And so right away you go, why does he do this? Something that other people would rather take the person that's no one's going to care about, that's going to cause the least amount of stir. He has selected someone of higher power, and that's who he wants to feed on. He doesn't feel bad for getting rid of them.
But over here, we don't feed off the wealthy.
I didn't realize how invested you are in keeping the mortals happy.
We're in an uneasy alliance with the humans in this town. For now.
And you can tell the way that he's looking at Drolta. What he is doing is he's trying to gather information. He wants to take a look at what the power dynamics are. And one of the best ways to do that is just to ask someone questions, to let them tell you what they're doing and why. A lot of people really enjoy, especially when they're passionate about something, they want to share all this information. And so even though that is kind of one of those tropes that the bad guy, whoever it is going to want to unveil their plan, humans are exceptionally like this. They want to share the things that they care about to anyone that wants to listen.
It disgusts me too. Making deals with them, feeding on peasants only in exchange for some influence among the aristocracy.
She says, it bothers me too. Like, you and I are the same. We both feel that way. And Orlox doesn't say yes or no, but he allows her to make this assumption. We often, especially with people that we like or we look up to or we want to gain favor with, we often, if they don't state something specific, we will see in them, we will reflect what we want to see back. So a lot of times, if you don't share the information, someone will make assumptions depending on how you react to something. And because Orlox is so calm and analytical, he's not giving off many clues of how he actually feels. Though you can see it in a little bit the way that he side-eyes Drolta instead of looking at her softly. He doesn't look down or even turn his head much to be able to talk to her unless he has to.
Enduring that man in the Abbey in exchange for his night creatures.
The sun will rise soon. Shouldn't you get back to the chateau?
Where are you staying?
Oh, that was completely a purr. Drolta also likes Orlox, doesn't she? Or is she sweet-talking him just to find out where he might be staying so that she can find out more about him? I think it's the former, and she just likes him and wants to know where he might be staying. And Orlox, that little chuckle, like, this is definitely not the first person that has hit on him.
There's an inn on the other side. It's good, quiet.
Private.
I like to keep my ear to the ground.
Yeah, she's definitely smitten, that little tiny bow that she does to him. And he does give up a little bit of information that that's what he does. He likes to figure out the entire game at play before he decides to make his moves.
Not long now.
Before dawn. I could tell without ever watching. The instant the sun comes up, some quality in the air changes.
We all feel it. It's dread.
You see, again, she assumes, but the way that he speaks, it seems like it's a warmth or it's an understanding or something that he lost or doesn't have anymore. Versus the reaction of Drolta definitely is that she fears the sun, which makes a lot of sense for being a vampire. We often give up a lot of information by the intonations and those micro expressions or body reactions that someone takes when someone is saying something. If we curl up or we tense back or even if we flinch, it's giving off information of how we're emotionally feeling. The emotions that we feel often cause physiological and universally physiological reactions in humans. Across all different cultures, the feelings of disgust, anger, sadness, fear, happiness, all have the same physiological reactions. And you know if something is a universal biological truth to all people, that it was something that was beneficial for our survival and adaptive.
Imagine total freedom, never shrinking from light.
I don't waste my time imagining things that will never be.
But it will be, Orlox.
He's saying that he does not believe things just by being told. He's not someone that will just follow the flock easily. There are some people that will listen to hype and want to fall into that. There are people that might be better as followers. But for him, he's going to take everything and then analyze it and then decide whether he feels comfortable and will follow because that's the smartest move or not.
Across Europe, vampires are pledging their allegiance to Erzbet Battery. Will you be next?
I've never been a believer of any kind.
And that's really cool. For him to state that to Erzbet's second in command, his closest person who he already knows loves her, takes a lot of ego strength, but also an understanding of his own standing. I'm probably going to say Erzbet. Erzbet? I'm going to say it wrong every single time. I apologize. Don't put it down in the comments. I'm sorry. I'm going to do my best can. It's not even the teeth, it's me. I'm sorry.
Maybe I need to see to believe. I've heard she's very formidable.
Like, it's such an underplay. One is I need to see it to believe. So all of your hype means nothing to me, and it might even diminish my feelings about it. But if I see something that is worthy of following, perhaps then I'll believe. That is an exceptionally strong statement, and some people that might have weaker ego strength could even see that as a challenge.
Formidable, wonderful, a lioness. Evil trembles before her.
Georgia just loves her. Like, it's more than she worships her, she loves her. The way that she's speaking about her, it's not fear, it's adoration. And they're in a relationship together, so that makes a lot of sense that she feels so very strongly.
We've seen empires rise and fall, Orlox. Mortals are fickle.
And when Georgia is speaking about we, she's trying to make him feel a part of them. She wants to bring him into the fold. Saying I or they pushes people away and makes us feel like we're not welcome, we're not a part of it. So she's doing a good job, but she isn't reading that for Orlox, he's not just going to believe something because someone else said it. So most of her words are falling on deaf ears.
Let's make a new world, Orlox.
You see, that's another one I've heard before.
And let's make it last.
He's jaded. When you've been through and seen so many of the same thing happen with different players, there's much less of a chance that you are going to just follow the flock and believe it. It hardens you. It makes you question things. It might also make you question your own role in that. And that can be both a benefit and a curse. And for Orlox, he doesn't want to make the wrong move in this, and he seems to have more of a personal stake than he's letting on.
Long ago, when I was still human, I watched men wade ashore from ships and slaughter my people. Who could have believed such a thing? They said they were doing it for their god.
That gives us the motivation that he has, why he doesn't bow to the sight of power, why he isn't in adoration of things that are powerful or elite or that everyone else will worship, why gods don't matter to him. He has seen what happens at the hands of people that say that they know the answer, that they are powerful, that they are gods, that God is making them do this. He has a distaste for it. And you would say maybe after 250 years that this would go away, that this feeling, that this burning, when we take something that we've gone through our childhood or when we were young, and for him when he was human, and it hurt us, it mattered us, it leaves an imprint, it makes us who we are. And for Orlox, this is the thing that drives him. This is why he feeds on the rich, why he doesn't bow down just to anyone.
Behold, the one before whom evil trembles, devourer of light, taker of souls, vampire lioness, she who mauls, the messiah of...
Yes, charmed to meet you.
I just love it. He's like, I'm so done with this. Can we please just stop? He's disgusted by this show of how powerful that she is, that she has to have all of these different titles. It definitely reminds me of the Game of Thrones scene with Jon Snow and Daenerys when we first see them coming in, and Jon Snow's just Jon Snow. He cuts her off. This is a huge sign of disrespect, but he doesn't care. He can't actually stomach it, even though he probably, if he thought twice, it would be more polite and a better strategic move if he just let her prattle on with whatever she wanted to say so that it didn't show how much disdain he has. That show of narcissism for someone to have to be worshipped, to have all of this fanfare and gold and titles, right away that shows that someone is in need of being fed. They have narcissistic traits, which already you can tell that Orlox is not into. He wants something that's more real, that's focused, that's intense, that matters to him. Something more tangible. That people like Elizabeth, I think I did that right, like people like Elizabeth have taken from others that feed on the weak, and he doesn't respect that.
You're meant to bow.
Countess?
Her magnificence has heard much about you.
I'm flattered. For a god to have heard of me.
You can tell there is a touch of sarcasm with the way that he speaks. He doesn't actually respect her. That, for Orlox, would have to be earned, not just given. A lot of people that have been through that are often coming out with oppositional traits. They're not just going to do something because it's easy or because they're told to. It has to have a reason. It has to have a validity. And for Orlox, he needs to know the reasons why, and then perhaps he would. Still not sure that he would.
And once they see my beauty, all will worship me.
Do you see that little bit of scowl that he gives when she says that everyone will worship me because of my beauty? Not because she has earned it, just because she is powerful and beautiful. And you can see the disdain in his eyes. Even though he's reserved, he's not able to mask that micro-expression. But because they are so involved in their own aura, they don't even notice, which often happens with people that lean more towards narcissistic traits. They're so self-involved that they're not even paying attention to what you're doing or not doing. The thought that he would be betraying them or thinking anything else or not worshiping them doesn't even come into play for them. They expect it, so much so that they don't even question his loyalty.
But you want to accomplish this through an alliance with a man who will never worship you?
I'm a goddess.
He's not as impressed as everyone else is with her little tiny dark ball that she keeps on flashing about.
Of course.
Bow, I said.
Like the tiniest, teeniest bow, right? Like usually the deeper that you bow, the more sign of respect that you are giving to someone else. It would be the smarter of the place. For someone that is so analytical, it would be the smarter of the place to fully bow, for them to believe that he's fully on board and then he can do whatever he wants. He can't. It's one of those things that he has an opposition to. When we can't do something, even though it would be more strategically sound to do it, there is probably someone in his past that he has been forced to show allegiance to or bow to, and that bothered him. Even having a very strong parental figure can make you have this opposition that I'm never going to just bow or give in to anyone because they ask. And it's interesting because we often go through saying these oppositional traits are bad and people should be more obedient, but actually these are also traits of strong leaders, people that you would want to follow, because they're not just going to follow and believe anything. They're going to need proof and think about it and analyze it first.
I will make the abbot worship me.
Everyone has a weakness. Priests, dragons.
We will lean to the video on Orlox and Mizrak that do they know that he cares for him? And perhaps he cares for him more than he's letting on.
Behold, the devourer of light.
Impossible.
So in that moment, he does see, though, how powerful she really is. She is able to create a complete eclipse. Or she knows the cosmology and is able to time this perfectly to be when there was already an eclipse happening. Not as cool. And it goes back to the, does he need proof? Is this enough proof for him to follow Erzsébet? For people of his personality type, they would need more. People that are analytical, calculated, looking through things, they need more than just someone being able to show something really powerful. They also usually like a certain set of character traits with someone, and those would be the traits that they would want to follow. Someone that they would actually look up to and trust, or at least that's in alignment with what they would believe.
A Forge Master usually has a talisman or tool. We need to find it.
He has a machine.
So he's already picked a side. He has chosen to cross Erzsébet because that's what he believes is the right thing to do, even though he's giving it to Richter Belmont, who wants him dead. So for him, there is a greater good beyond himself, beyond his own safety, and this puts him at great risk, but he's choosing to do it anyway. He has his own moral compass that he follows. For most people, they will put themselves over anything that they believe, but for someone that truly believes something or feels something deeply, and for Orlox, I believe that that's because of all the things that he's gone through, the people that he's seen die at hands of people like Erzsébet, and how he needs to have it stopped.
Don't make me have to fight you.
Why won't you face me?
Make sure you destroy the machine.
You do it.
Right now, I can't be seen to be doing anything.
And the reason that he can't be seen doing anything is because they've already threatened him. I don't believe that it's that he cares about his own welfare, but that they've already threatened him, that they know what he cares about, which is Mizrak, and he needs to make sure to keep him safe, so he can't show his cards too quickly.
You expect me to trust my mother's killer?
I could have killed you 3 times now. Ironic, I think, for both of us. But now, I need a Belmont.
And it's true, he could have killed him already a whole bunch of times, but he chose not to. Those are the reasons that I think Orlox makes such an interesting character, because you don't always know why he's doing things, and it makes you have to think twice of his motivations. You see that flash of his eyes? That actually does happen when we find someone that we fancy. Our eyes widen to take them fully in. Though there is one thing inaccurate, is usually when we see something we like, our pupils dilate. They don't constrict to be smaller. We want to let in more light, but you could assume that for a vampire, perhaps that would be the opposite. I do like it that Mizrak actually got the jump on Orlox. People often ask, how do you choose who you fall in love with? How do you know what character traits? Often it's something unconscious, something that you're unaware of. Usually it's something from your childhood. It could be a personality trait that you found endearing or comforting or protective. Perhaps you really had a wonderful parental figure that showed you a lot of care and you looked up to them and felt safe. Sometimes, though, it is the antithesis of something. Perhaps you had someone that was really reactive and you didn't enjoy that, so you might find someone exactly the opposite of those traits. But usually it's formed really, really young, and so it's often unconscious to us. And that means that sometimes we will fall into the same traps of dating similar people, and sometimes that's good that we've chosen people for the right personality traits, but because it's unconscious, sometimes we will choose people for the wrong personality traits because it's answering a wound or trigger or hurt from our childhood.
Who the f*** are you and what do you want?
Why is your abbot forging night creatures? It doesn't sit well with your faith.
What do you know about faith?
And there's many different types of flirting. Though for men of war, you could see that fighting would be a type of flirting also. So this is definitely them flirting with each other. You like this much better than Jolta's flirting.
Faith is order. When you walk through fire, you shall not be burned, nor will flames consume you. Isaiah 43:2.
Like, this worked for him.
The Messiah knows, I presume, that your abbot is a forge master.
And what happens when you feel attracted to someone is that you end up with a release of dopamine. It kind of floods your system with this feeling. You also end up with an increase of testosterone. That's for men and for women, which makes you more aggressive, more primal, and also makes you more sexually attracted to someone.
He thinks the devils he manufactures will be enough to destroy her when the time comes. What do you think? Do you think he's right?
It affects all kinds of your glands. It releases more sweat. It also heightens various senses. For many people also, when they fall in love, their immune system is kickstarted. It makes you feel more alive. It's on the same level as a dose of cocaine. And that's why falling in love can also be addictive.
Mournful that day, when from the dust shall rise guilty men to be judged. He's threatening you. You reluctant demon.
I love that he's saying he's threatening him, not Orlox doesn't feel like he's threatened or that he has any chance of the threat. That's how much Orlox feels secure in who he is.
Why was the Belmont boy so afraid of you?
I've lived a long time as human and vampire, but I've only really loved once. He was from a little town in Massachusetts.
The thing about falling in love, caring about someone, is also that opening yourself up. If you are really going to allow yourself to fall in love, you have to open up who you are. But that comes with a whole bunch of risks, because that's what intimacy is. Into me I see. Allowing someone else to see who you actually are. And that's what Orlox is doing with this self-disclosure. He's very careful with what he shares with other people, but right away with Mizrak, he's able to share about his past, something that means a lot to him, and in a way that isn't flowery or defensive or evasive. It's direct and to the point, and something that matters very deeply to him. And to be able to do that, to share something that hurts you, that you've been hurt by, means that you have to trust someone, and that's how we build intimate relationships. And so this isn't just a hookup for Orlox.
He was proud to be Mohican, with roots deep in the land and forest. He burned with such passion.
And that's what I think Orlox finds attractive about Mizrak. He also has that burning passion, something he truly believes in. For Orlox, because he is much more jaded, because he's lived all of this time, seen so many things, that he enjoys feeding off of that passion that someone else has. Often we are attracted to someone that has a trait that we do not. Yes, sometimes opposites do attract. Sometimes same people do as well. But we often do appreciate and admire in someone something that we wished we had ourselves.
About the world, about how the people, that's how he talked. Win this thing called freedom. Even people like him. People whose land had been stolen, I mean.
You hear the passion when he's saying these words. He feels that people that have had their land stolen, he feels it deeply within himself. When we care about something and we see someone else care about it as well, we also feel that kinship between people, and that can often bring us together.
Like mine was, oh, so long ago. But he fought with them. The revolutionaries, he fought with them. He almost made me believe in it, too.
And also people that do something that inspire us to be better than ourselves, to do something that we didn't think we can do. That can be really alluring.
Then Julia Belmont killed him.
Because he was a vampire. And you did that to him. Did you even ask permission?
I was in love with him. I wanted him to be with me forever.
This is the only time that I've seen Orlox react in anger, in visceral anger. And that matters. That thing that he's always put together. He's always calm. Even when he killed Julia, he was calm about it, always in control. Whenever we feel something that triggers us really quickly, when we go from 0 to 10, that's because it matters to us. That's because we feel so deeply about it. And probably for Orlox, he carries the guilt of that if he hadn't have done this, maybe he would still be alive. And that his own actions, in a way, had him taken from him. And so that's a pain that he still carries today, even after all of those years.
And is that what you have planned for me?
Of course not, Mizrak. I'm not in love with you.
It's funny because when I first saw this, I believed him. That, he likes him well enough, but he's not in love with him. He doesn't have any emotional connections. Maybe not yet in love, but definitely has a stronger attraction to Mizrak than he would want us to know.
I'm a goddess.
Of course.
Bow, I said.
You see what a tiny bow he gives? He's not into worshipping things or creatures or gods.
I will make the abbot worship me.
Everyone has a weakness. Priests, dragons.
Yes.
But that was a direct threat. What Drolta is saying is that they know his weakness. We're going to use the abbot's daughter against him to control him. We also know that you have a weakness. And it's true. Once we form an emotional attraction to someone, when we actually care about them, it's not just something physical, it's something emotional. We start to care about them, and in some ways more than ourselves. We want to protect them. All of those neurotransmitters, the norepinephrine, the phenethylamine, that makes us zero in our attention on one person, and we become exceptionally protective of them, not wanting anything bad to happen to them. And I think that the next scene really does show that this hit a nerve.
Once she conquers Europe, we will be her guide into America.
And you will deliver it to me.
doesn't like that. Yet, look at the way that he reacts.
I told you to bow.
Now he gives a full bow. What is the difference between these moments? I don't think that he is really that impressed with the little tiny glowing ball that she has. He hasn't really seen it do anything. It's just a whole bunch of words. This is after, though, they've threatened Mizrak. You can see that oppositional defiance on his face. You see that full bow, that oppositional defiance. He does not like being threatened, but he also knows that this is not the time to play his cards. He has survived by keeping his emotions very close to him. He's very rarely reactive. He controls his emotions so that people don't know exactly how he feels. Exceptionally strategic. He has that analytical mind. He's very good at social engineering. He wants to find out all the cards at play so that he can play this game to win.
Stand aside.
Many of us probably missed that little tiny wisp of smoke going across the screen, but that is Orlox. He's there to make sure that Mizrak is safe and to see how the plan is going. It's really important to note that for Orlox, he's already lost someone that he loves. He wasn't able to save them. And when you deal with survivor's guilt, that you've done something that you question so many times, he's going to make sure that he doesn't make the same mistake again.
You're doing the devil's work. We can end this madness.
Also kind of cool, Mizrak does not have any powers. His power is his intensity. His power is how strongly he believes, his faith. And that trait is exceptionally rare, but when you feel something, it matters to you beyond yourself, then you can apply that to other areas of your life. And that can make you achieve something because you will put everything that you have into it. Unfortunately, it also sometimes leaves you with blinders where you're not really going to look because you're so clouded by this single-mindedness. So it can be a strength, but it can also be a weakness because sometimes you might need to let go of something or move on or look at things from a different angle, and you won't for the same reason. Yep, that's Orlox, making sure that Mizrak is okay. I love them fighting together as a team. He has to stay in the shadows so that they don't know it, but he's also going to make sure that Mizrak is okay. Like the little tiny wink that Orlox also gives him, like, you know, I have your back. I just loved watching Mizrak and Orlox working as a team. I think that there's something wonderful about teamwork together and partners. That partners in crime kind of feeling really is exceptionally bonding for people. It's that feeling that you know that someone will be there without even having to ask them, and they fight really well together. Orlox takes that risk of swooshing Mizrak away, worried that he could die if he's gonna fight Erzsébet, because he cares about him that much, even though he's doing it right in front of them. That's a risk to himself. Again, because he's already lost his love. When you've gone through something that's so emotionally hurtful to you, you carry that pain. Often then we become so polarized that no matter what, we want to make sure that we don't make what we feel is a mistake. You'll do anything to fix that past mistake, or at least try to right a wrong.
We have to go back. Coward! Let me go!
You can't fight Erzsébet.
Then you fight her!
Not powerful enough.
She'll kill them!
If you go back, she'll kill you.
It's interesting because you see what matters to both of them. For Mizrak, it's the honor of doing what is the right thing. For fighting for what he believes. It's the same thing for Orlox, but Orlox wants to protect the person that he cares about from having the same end happen to him as well. Sometimes you don't have that same unified goal, and that can break you both apart. Yes, Orlox selfishly took Mizrak away from something that he believed in. Now, did he turn his past love selfishly? It may have been his love's choice. We do not know that. We can't make a guess. But in this case, Orlox made a choice for Mizrak. He didn't ask him, and if he did, he knows what his answer would be. Mizrak wants to be able to fight, to do what is right. He could hold him there, and he doesn't either.
And I don't want you to die, Mizrak.
And now he lets down his guard, right? He allows his vulnerability to be shown to Mizrak so that he gets that he actually matters to him.
You wouldn't understand. You're an animal which lost its soul centuries ago.
Ow! Orlox is here showing his humanity to Mizrak, how he cares about him, so much so that he's going to risk himself. Mizrak's reaction is disgust. To call him an animal, for the most human of things, for caring about him. Perhaps also for Mizrak, this might be a little bit defensive on his part as well, because if he cares about Orlox, this creature that he believes is soulless, then what does that mean about him? And he may not let him go if he doesn't say something to push him away.
The crooked straight and rough places play.
Music is universal to all known cultures. For most psychological phenomena that are universal across all cultures, there was a biological advantage that it gave us. For music, it doesn't feed us, it doesn't sustain us, and it doesn't protect us. The reasons for music are much less well understood, but because of that, so much more interesting.
And the rough places play.
Edouard believes singing was the soul's way of speaking. That's why, from pauper to statesman, everyone is drawn to music.
And I think that that is a very succinct way to talk about music. Music is something that can touch everyone. Culturally, we react very similarly to types of songs and music. Certain types of beats create the feelings of fear or uneasy or peace or happiness. And so it's in a lot of ways a universal language.
He'd say that when he was on stage looking out to the audience, he could see the colors of everyone's soul.
And that, I think, is a really important part to Edouard's psychology. And I think that that's going to come into play later when he's in his demon form, that he is able to look out at all of these demons and be able to see what is inside of them.
Mine was pink. He was wrong, though. Green is my favorite color.
So it's funny because I don't even know why they put that in, because he says, mine was pink. But he was wrong, though. My favorite color is green. Like, she didn't understand, or the person that was writing it didn't understand that he wasn't seeing your favorite color. He was seeing your soul. He was seeing what you brought out into the world, what you were able to give it. I don't really understand why they placed her misunderstanding of what his gift really was. It isn't about knowing what someone's favorite color is. It's about being able to see beyond who someone actually was.
Stop! Stop! Who the hell are you, and what do you think you're doing?
My slave came through here.
It takes a lot of inner fortitude to be able to make a stand, especially against people that are in power. Now, Edouard also understands, though, that everyone is there to see him. He is the one that in this situation holds all of the cards. And I love that he has that in his character trait, that even if he may be admonished or may pay a price for it after, he's willing to take a risk. That they're willing to sacrifice their own health, well-being, and safety in order to do a greater good. But it's not everyone that has the strength to be able to do that. And I think that that's one of the things that makes Edouard so special, that even though His power is song. His power is being able to touch the innermost parts of people. Also, it's that his word is his bond, and if he believes in something, he's going to do it no matter what.
I have to go to France.
Then I'm coming with you. He'll be waiting when I get back. Warriors in arms, Annette. Family in hearts.
I love that line. It makes me feel so emotional because there is something so precious when you have someone that's kind of your ride or die person, where you know no matter what, right or wrong, they will be by your side. And that's who Edouard is. It breaks my heart when Edouard shies away from Annette, seeing him in this form. He's embarrassed or ashamed of who he has become, of what has happened to him, and what is her reaction. A lot of times when you change who you are, you're worried about what those you care about will think and how they're going to react, because it matters so much to you. Realistic is it that he would still want to protect Annette? A lot of us is that limbic response, is that emotional connection that we have to people. Even when a lot of us are dealing with perhaps a cognitive decline, that love, that care is the innermost part of our brain, and it's the one that is the most protected from many different forms of dementia, Alzheimer's, cognitive decline. So I think that especially with someone that believes so strongly in what they care about, in the people that they surround themselves with, it makes sense to me that Edouard would still carry those pieces with him.
Do you understand what you are, Devil? You were created to obey, and that is all you were created for.
You can see the terror in Edouard's eyes of what has he become. The thing that really matters to us is who we are on the inside. And for Edouard, no matter what he looks like on the outside, you can see that peaceful, kind, caring, protective soul that he really is. He may look like a demon, but truly he has the heart and soul of an angel. And you can hear that out of him when he sings. We will often judge a book by its cover, like things that are perfect, beautiful, but we didn't do anything to get that. That's just the way that we were born into, and we're so much more than those crude shells, the things that we've worked towards, the things that we care. Those are the things that make us truly shine. There's two things that are really interesting about this scene. One is that you can hear all of the other demons snarling until Edouard sings. In a lot of ways, music does soothe the savage beast. Depending on the type of music, it changes our heart rate and lowers it. It reaches us in a very limbic level. Hearing a heartbeat soothes a child, and a lot of music has similar beats to that because it does reach us in a more primal way. There's something called auditory scene analysis, the cocktail effect, and that is that we can hone in on a single conversation, even in a room filled with conversations and people that are talking. So if you're attuned to something, you can keep your focus on that. There are some that are more neurodivergent that are not able to do this. This might be something that you might do, but don't feel bad if you can't.
Who were you, friend? Do you remember who you were?
I remember being out in the woods.
Can music help bring out repressed memories? It does, because it's that more primal area of the brain. We store the feelings that we have in songs, in nursery rhymes, very close to the area where we store memories. So we end up linking those together. And we found that people with traumatic brain injuries can sometimes, even though they don't remember where they are or what they've been, be able to sing a song or remember parts of their childhood. I think that for Edouard's music, though, also it's soothing. So in an area where you might feel scared and upset, and because you're feeling scared and upset and that adrenaline's rushing through your system, his soothing voice lowers your heart rate, lowers your cortisol levels, and will actually lower your levels of aggression, making you feel more relaxed and having those memories be able to come back to you. So when someone is humming to someone to make them feel calm and relaxed, doesn't work for everyone, but many people like that. It can actually lower our limbic response, and then things can come to our memory more easily and more comfortably.
And a girl who liked talking. I remember that I liked her, and I liked what she said. My name was Jacques.
A lot of times that's the way that hypnotism works. You put yourself in a really relaxed state and you try to be able to go to places that you may not have accessed because of trauma or fear.
Have courage. There is light in this darkness.
It's Edouard.
And in this prison, down here in the dark, Jacques, standing guard over me, do you accept it now as your fate?
No.
I think that that's Edouard's power. With his music, he allows people to be calm, relaxed. That lowers our level of cortisol, but also increases our levels of dopamine, which makes us feel safe and motivated. And we're so much easier to control when we're scared, when we're fearful, when we're angry. And a lot of different news media organizations actually try to make us feel angry and upset. So we fight among ourselves and sort of being able to help each other. And so that's what Edouard is doing. He's letting people feel again, feeling safe, thinking of themselves so that they can think more clearly and then make their own decisions beyond what society, and in Jacques' case, what the abbot has set out for him. Once people start thinking for themselves, then nothing can stand in their way. When music that we like or that makes us feel is played, it actually makes those mirror neurons start to fire, where we feel that our emotions are being empathized with. So often when you're feeling sad or upset, especially if you can't express it, you might find it to be soothing to be able to express those emotions through song. And usually if you're feeling sad, you want to hear a sad song, not a happy one, because that feels validating. And you can see that Jacques is not sure of what he should do. He's thinking, making choices for himself. Another cool thing about music that makes us feel something that we feel akin to is that when we're feeling relaxed and calm, it's actually reparative to us. So is Edouard also helping those parts of the brain that might have been cut off be actually able to be repaired, so all of these different demons can make their own choices? Perhaps he's helping their brain be soothed and calmed so that they can make decisions that are against the abbot's wishes, against what they were coded for. I love the look down of Jacques where he's made that choice that I'm gonna do something different. It's really exciting for me when we go against our nature, we face the things that we're scared about, we do something beyond ourselves. Because once you start to do it, it's almost like your chains have been broken, that it opens up new worlds for you, allows you to become something that you may not have even known was possible before you did it. I also like that Jacques kind of looked back to Annette like, okay, like, go ahead, like, come on, I got this. It's just such a sweet little tiny moment of a connection. And when we do that us and them, or we demonize certain people or populations, it does such a disservice. There is good and bad in all of us, but we need to be able to open up our hearts to be able to see that. And in the end, that can make such a huge difference. We need to sometimes bridge that gap.
Let's break you out of this place.
No. My work here isn't finished, Annette.
Even though Edouard wants to leave, he wants to be free, he finds a higher purpose in the work that he's doing, and that he knows that that matters, that he can be able to reach people that are forgotten, that are not cared for, that don't matter. And it's so in line with who Edward is. I think that it's beautiful that he makes this sacrifice to be able to help these night creatures and also to be able to help his friends. For some people, the thing that matters the most to them is to be able to make a positive change within the world. Sometimes we don't do things because no one else is doing it. We need someone to be able to light the way so that others can follow. And Edward sees that. He has those true leadership qualities, and he's willing to be able to make the sacrifices to do a greater good.
I'm not ready to leave. When I sing, there's light in this darkness.
And that's just so beautiful, because that's what he did before. But this time he sees such a great purpose in that, because here he is giving choice to these creatures that they didn't have a choice before him, and he's making a concrete change for them.
It touches souls. But yours, your work, is down there.
For Edward, it goes back to that beginning where he could see people's souls. So he can actually see, witness the changes and those that he can reach. And so that really does magnify this power that he has. Music doesn't just deal with our reward system. It can also release oxytocin that can lower feelings of pain and make us feel more relaxed. So he really is soothing all of these creatures that have been horribly changed and altered as well. And, you know, just like a tiger with like a little tiny thorn in his paw and might be all grumpy and vicious, but once the thorn is out of their paw, they could be really sweet and cuddly. And so he might also be doing that for the creatures. Not always. Don't pet a tiger. Don't. Even if the thorn's gone, it still may eat you. But in this case, he's doing a lot of good with the night creatures. Just went on a tangent. Don't want someone to come back being like, I pet the tiger, Georgia. It hurt me.
You can't stay here.
Demons from hell don't scare me. Warriors in arms. Family in heart.
I love that when Annette was scared, Edward was there again and just comforting her. And even though she wants to keep him safe, he knows that he has a job to do. And I love that he says that line again. It just really touches my heart so much. Their relationship is so beautiful. This thought that he has transcended everything that he went through, that's what mattered. And that's what he kept with him. These are my thoughts on Edward. You can let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video.